At the very beginning, a very good afternoon to you all. And my thanks to IMPRI and especially Professor Patel for having me here. Thank you, Vibhuti. Actually, gender budget is a part of the general budget. So I would like to place the concerns in the context of the union budget that is presented this year. The 8th budget in a row. This year's budget, in a way, carries forward from where they have left last year. Like last year, the concern remains the Gyan, the Garib, youth, Yuba, and Annadata and Nadi. And the finance minister talks of development journey towards the destination of Vikshit Bharat. And in this, she talks about a few things. I would like to start with the budget speech of let me share my screen.
Are you able to share?
I'm trying to find out where it is.
Oh. That green icon you see with arrow? Yeah.
Green icon with arrow.
Share. It is written share.
Oh, I can't find that.
It is there in the last line where chat, react, share,
The
UNE,
Zoom window, no?
show caption.
In Zoom
Can
window?
you send your PPT by email to IMPRI team?
I'll be able to do. Just a minute.
Acha, you will do it.
Chat, share, yeah.
Yeah.
Then share.
Yes. It is in working mode. You can make it, yeah.
I'm going fast.
Yeah.
Fast. You see, these objectives were set up by.
Yeah, you can make it a slideshow mode. You can go on slideshow and start from first. Yeah.
Slideshow.
If it's not possible, then go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. Now it's fine?
Yes, it is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, these are the objectives that the finance minister has set for the budget. Growth, inclusive development, private sector investment are common. We always find this. And now these two really, intrigues me. Household sentiments and spending power of rising middle class. What is this household sentiments? What does sentiments mean? Is it about some mood lifters that the budget is talking about? And what is the middle class? How do you know who are the middle class? These questions pending. Let us go to see what was the context in which the budget was placed. As I say, the focus was Garib, youth, Annadata, and Nari. Engines were to achieve To address this, the engines were identified as agriculture, MSME, investment, and exports. And the guiding spirit was inclusivity. To understand the budget, we need to understand how inclusive the budget was for the Garib, Youth, Annadata, and Nari. What I plan to do is first take a look at the general economic environment in which the budget is tabled. My purpose is to understand how allocations are made in order to tackle economic and developmental challenges. The economic survey talks about, presented in the budget tip, notes that global uncertainties and conflicts are the potential challenges of the economy to the economy. It talks about the economic policy uncertainty index, which is very high due to global concerns about economic policies. Similarly, World Trade Uncertainty Index has risen, driven by trade tensions and policy shift in major economies. The global conflicts and geopolitics in Russia-Ukraine war, Hamas-Israel tensions continue in the Middle East. These are likely to affect the global trade. Disruption in trade transit through Suez Canal can increase the prices, which might affect the external economy of the country. In the domestic front, the survey says the GDP growth has been 6.4%. Consumption demand, that is personal final consumption expenditure, sorry. How do I go back?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I want to go back. How do I do that?
Yeah. You can go back if you move your cursor in the opposite direction.
From the keyboard left arrow also you can use. Keyboard left arrow, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Then consumption demand, gross capital formation, and on the demand side and on the supply side, all have the services has increased as share of GDP, but it has increased at a much lower rate than the last financial year. If we look at the sources of growth, in agriculture, it has been 3.8%, which was because of the consistently operating, it was consistently operating above the trend values because of healthy kharif production, above normal monsoons, and an adequate reservoir level supported by agricultural growth at 8.2%, higher than the average food grain production in the past 5 years. The industrial sector is estimated to grow at 6.2%. Strong growth rates in construction activities driven by infrastructure investment and housing demand and electricity, gas, water supply, and other utility services are expected to support industrial expansion. However, manufacturing exports slowed significantly low due to weak demand from destination countries and aggressive trade and industrial policies in major trading nations. Even then, despite various challenges, India continues to register the fastest growth in the PMI or Purchasing Managers Index. Growth in the service sector is expected to remain robust at 7.2%, driven by healthy activity in financial, real estate, professional service, public administration, etc. Financial, real estate, and professional services have taken the lead, surpassing the pre-pandemic trend levels. While merchandise imports were merchandise exports widened, India's merchandise trade deficit was covered by India's services trade surplus. On the external front, the surplus in the services trade, record remittances has helped current account deficit to be contained at 1.2% of the GDP. Stable capital flows ensured India's foreign exchange reserve to a level when it is enough to cover 90% of foreign debt and import bills for 10 months. Coming to the figures of state of the economy, as mentioned earlier also, the growth rate of GDP around 6.4% is moderate, and the attempt of the government to keep the deficits within the target and gradually reduce it has kept fiscal deficit target at 4.4% of GDP, lower than revised estimate of 4.8% in the 24-25 budget. Similarly, revenue deficit is targeted as 1.5, lower than 1.9 of the revised estimate. Primary deficit target is 0.8%, lower than revised estimate at 1.3%. Government expenditure is 7.4% higher than the revised estimate of 2024. Factoring in inflation, expenditure growth is not much. Capital expenditure expected to increase by 10.1% over the last year's revised estimate. Revenue expenditure to increase by 6.7% over the last financial year. Now, fiscal deficit is an indicator of borrowings by the government for financing its expenditure. While revenue deficit is the excess of revenue expenditure over revenue receipts, such a deficit implies that the government needs to borrow funds to meet recurring expenses which may not provide future returns. The cut in fiscal deficit, the pathway of fiscal deficit decline is important. If a fiscal deficit can be reduced by increased revenue earnings or by increased borrowing or by cutting down expenditure, then if this expenditure cut is due to cut in social sector's outlay, then it becomes a problem. Now we can take a look at the different revenue sources. The sources are identified as borrowings and other liabilities. 24% of the revenue comes from borrowings, which is less than the 27% of last year. Income tax contributes 22%. It has increased compared to last year's. GST and other taxes contribution remains same. And all other taxes, corporate tax, non-tax receipts, excise duties, customs duties, non-debt capital duties, all remains similar as the last year content. Only the contribution of income tax is more, and it is interesting to say that the corporate tax contribution is much less than income tax, in spite of so much of boosting of corporate activities. And the expenditure, where does the money go? State share of tax and duties constitute 22%, interest payment 20% because of the earlier borrowings. Central sector scheme percentage remains same as 16. Centrally sponsored scheme also have 8%. Finance Commission and other transfers to the states is reduced compared to the earlier 9%. Other expenditure also has reduced. Defense expenditure remains same, pensions remain same, major subsidies remain same. At each budget, some promises are made, and then in the next budget, the new projects come in. If you would remember, the last budget, there were employment-linked incentives were announced. In the context of agriculture, it was proposed that there will be development of climate resilient varieties and raising productivity, sufficiency oilseed production, natural farming. 1 crore farmers across the country will be initiated into natural farming. And similarly, there were these internship programs were announced. Now, if we look at the state of implementation of the employment link program, you'd see that these things are still not operationalized. Only in the internship opportunities that was promised, 1.27 lakh internship opportunities have been posted by the companies at the site hosted by the government, PM internship program. Against those, 6.2 lakh applications have been received, and selection process by the companies and joining of the interns are going on. And women-led development during last financial year, it's 6.8%, which is expected to rise in this budget. Employment scenario for all, with all these attempts where unemployment rate declined from 6% in 2017-18 to 3.2% in 23-24. National average of labor force participation rate is 45.1%, and worker population ratio is 43.7%. The proportion of self-employed workers in the workforce has risen from 52.2% to 58.4% in 23-24. Proportion of women in regular wage salaried employment decreased. More women engage in self-employment or contribute to household enterprises because they don't find job outside. In rural areas, MGNREGA is not only provided, as mentioned in the survey, not only provided employment, but helped in boosting rural ecological health through improvement in soil quality and plantation, and has improved over rural water management for agriculture through integrated watershed management assets. Allocation at the previous year's level at 86,000 crore, while actual expenditure in the last financial year was above 89,000 crores. Percentage generated declined to 2,020.11 crores in 24-25. Average percentage generated per household is 42.77 days instead of the targeted 100 days. Women employment were 57.97 days average. Number of problems plagues MGNREGA. The problems of delayed payment, problems of direct benefit transfers, where there are many issues with registering with the banks. The gender budget allocation in the total union budget this year increased to 8, as mentioned already, 8.86% from 6.8%, the largest ever gender budget. The 4.49 lakh crore allocated for welfare of women and girls in the gender budget statement, an increase of 37.25% over the gender budget allocation in the last financial year. But sometimes the calculations in the gender budget is a mere jugglery of figures. Sometimes this program is, attached to gender budget. Last year it was PM Awas Yojana was attached to it. These are some other program is counted in the part A. All this, boost up the budget, but how much it actually helps, that remains to be seen by looking at the individual allocations for different programs, different schemes, the centrally sponsored schemes, and etc. Health, education remains most important for women welfare. This year's allocation to the Department of Health and Family Welfare shows a 10.8% increase from the revised estimates. Department of Health Research gets additional 39,000 crores. The schemes for medical tourism, medical education, daycare centers for cancer patients, healthcare benefits to nearly 1 crore platform workers through Ayushman Bharat was announced. However, it is painful to see that senior citizen health insurance scheme received no allocation. And then there was this talk of custom duty exemption of 36 life-saving drugs for rare diseases like cancer and chronic conditions. Here we must realize that these life-saving drugs are exorbitantly priced. A mere custom duty exemption of 15–20% doesn't reduce the price at all, and this duty exemption is not passed over by reduction, most of the time reduction of prices. So these are only, I was saying, there was this word, the sentiments, looking at the sentiment is the more, by saying this, you're trying to tinker with the mood. These are mood lifters, but whether these are actually going to be effective in helping the people remains doubtful. Then I was looking at the central sponsored schemes. In Sakshman Anganwadi, these were discussed already. So all shows marginal, very marginal increase, which if you consider the inflation rate is no increase at all. So these are the figures that schemes, social the social sector schemes, scholarships and all. I don't want to read out the figures, since you can all see here. Yeah. Now, I would like to say about this National Social Assistance Program, of which the old age pension scheme is the most important one. It received the same budget this year also, which is really painful, because these schemes, these assistance to a large number of elderly people in the unorganized sector depends on this. This is a meager amount that is given, and that also doesn't show any rise. Then for the cities, there were some programs like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. These red dots shows that the allocation hasn't increased, and the green dots are new schemes. And these two, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Urban Livelihood Mission, Deen Dayal Jan Ajivika Yojana, Shehri, and Smart Cities Mission are not being continued. They have received no fund. Allocation to select departments in crores. Now, instead of schemes, so I was looking into the allocation to different departments, all shows marginal increase. I think I should end here.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Paramita Saha. In higher